Support is flooding in from all across the country tonight for 2 Border Patrol agents in Texas who could be sentenced to 20 years in prison for shooting a Mexican drug smuggler. Amazingly, federal prosecutors allowed the smuggler to walk free. They gave him immunity in return for testimony against those agents. That drug smuggler subsequently smuggled more drugs. KCYN reports from El Paso, Texas.
By the time I made the U-turn,
Border Patrol agent Ignacio Ramos shows us the Texas road where he first encountered a suspected Mexican drug smuggler last year.
As soon as they passed me here, I just did a U-turn and followed them into town.
Ramos and other agents followed his van, which earlier had tripped a hidden sensor near the border, through the tiny town of Fabens and then back toward the border. To us, after many years of work in this area, when there's a vehicle driving away from a sensor and people running back south from that sensor, to us that usually means that's a narcotics load. Ramos continued to pursue the suspected drug smuggler down this road, past fields, and to a canal just a few yards from Mexico. He decided he wasn't going to make it, and he dumped the van right here, but the front of his van went right over the edge of the canal right there. The suspected smuggler fled into the canal, but another Border Patrol agent, Jose Campion, was waiting for him on the other side. A scuffle ensued. The suspect fled despite agents' orders to stop. He made a move on Agent Campion to get around him. He got around Agent Campion. It was at that time that I jumped into the canal to go help Agent Campion. Agent Ramos heard shots fired while he was in the canal. I had to run up this area here, get over the levee, and when I got over on the other side, Agent Campion was on the ground. The suspect was running away from Agent Campion. Ramos says the suspect turned and made a motion as if to fire a gun at him. I had my weapon in my hand. I picked up and fired. The suspect disappeared into the Rio Grande and reemerged on the Mexican side. Ramos says he appeared uninjured. It sounds like a simple story of a drug smuggler who got away. But 18 months later, agents Ramos and Campion are facing 20 years to life in prison, convicted on a variety of charges, including assault with a firearm, civil rights violations, and obstruction of justice for not reporting their weapons had been fired.
This is really the most outrageous miscarriage of justice that I'm aware of in my entire 28-year career as a Border Patrol agent. I have never seen anything so... I can't even think of the word. This is like diving into a trash can. The deeper you dig, the more it stinks.
That's because the smuggler, whose van contained nearly 800 pounds of marijuana, was shot in the buttocks by the Border Patrol agents. The assistant U.S. attorney in El Paso gave the suspected smuggler immunity from prosecution in exchange for his testimony against the agents. And the smuggler was encouraged to cooperate by the relatives of another Border Patrol agent in Arizona. I was doing the job the public entrusted me to do. They entrusted me to stop a drug smuggler, and I did. Joe Loya is Agent Ramos's father-in-law. He and other family members have wiped out their savings trying to help with Ramos's defense.
I was preparing for retirement next year. Now I guess I'll just have to work forever. But, you know, our faith and our prayers is what keeps us going, and we're not giving up on this.
Sources say the smuggler has since been arrested for carrying an even bigger load of drugs into the United States. The U.S. attorney prosecuting the agents would not comment on the case. Ramos says he was offered several plea bargains, and every time he refused, prosecutors added more charges to his case. Ramos is expected to be sentenced later this month and will immediately file an appeal. Despite the ordeal, he says he would return to his job as a Border Patrol agent.
It may sound crazy, but yeah, I'd still do it. It's what I am. It's what I do. It's what I love.
U.S. Customs and Border Protection just released a statement to us saying it takes all allegations of impropriety seriously. Mr. Ramos and Mr. Campion were investigated by an independent office and afforded due process. The statement goes on to say CBP respects the decision made by the court as well as the rights of the agents to appeal that decision. What's particularly striking to me, Lou, in that statement is that the agents' actions were not criticized by superiors in Washington. Lou?
And each one of those so-called violations, and we should pin down who the prosecutor is here and where it originated with the U.S. Attorney's Office and why. Because there are huge questions. Firing a weapon is one issue. That's an administrative breach. Pursuing, and we should go to this case as well, pursuing a fleeing suspect is, these agents are actually restricted by their own administrative guidelines, correct?
That is correct. It's one of the things that really frustrates Border Patrol agents. There is a policy that they're not allowed to pursue suspects above the speed limit. But the agents say that that policy is routinely ignored. They have to ignore it, or else they would never catch anyone. It's winked at by their superiors. Reports, they say, are doctored. They say that if shots had not been fired in this case, there would have been no mention in the reports that there was a pursuit, that it would have just been that they followed the suspect. So there are a lot of questions still to be answered in this case, and that's why T.J. Bonner, the Border Patrol Union, is calling for an independent investigation of the entire matter, Lou.
Independent investigation in this case should mean an investigation of the Inspector General's office as well. The Office of the Inspector General, as it's framed. It should be an investigation of the U.S. Attorney's Office, who would even suggest that the rights of an illegal alien, drug smuggler, caught with the goods, has rights superior to those of the agents that we depend on to enforce the law. And admittedly, not many of our laws are enforced when it comes to border security and immigration. But my God, and the U.S. Attorney's Office wouldn't even talk to us, Casey?
We made several attempts to contact the office. They responded saying they would not have. They referred us to the original press release when these officers or these agents were first charged, but they would not agree to be interviewed by us, Lou.
Well, I have to say that the U.S. Attorney's Office, the Assistant U.S. Attorney who prosecuted this, has a lot of explaining to do, and we're going to be relentless in giving them the opportunity to do so on this broadcast. Casey, I know you're going to be there covering this story for some time, and we appreciate your report here tonight on what is, by all appearances, just an outrage and a miscarriage of justice perpetrated for whatever reason by the Justice Department, the U.S. Attorney's Office in El Paso, Texas. And we will get to the bottom of it with or without the help of the federal government. Casey, thank you very much. Casey Wyan reporting tonight from El Paso, Texas. Agents Ramos and Campeon will be sentenced on August 22nd. And this broadcast will be following their story each and every day and every step of the way, and we will be reporting to you on what in the world this government of ours is thinking. Turning now to Iraq, insurgents today killed 3 more of our troops there. Israel says Hezbollah terrorists killed 15 Israeli soldiers in southern Lebanon today. We'll be talking about this conflict in the Middle East and the primary elections and what they portend for our